Scheduled meeting for the City Council. We're going to call this meeting to order. We'll have the City Clerk do roll call. And then we're fortunate to have Father Alexi Smith here to do our invocation. Then we'll have Councilmember Baldino lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. So, Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Councilmember Baldino.
Here.
Councilmember Giroux.
Here.
Councilmember Perstuck. Here. Mayor Pro Tem Pimentel.
Here.
And Mayor Boyles.
Here.
All right, you're all here.
Thank you very much. Okay, if you could all please rise.
Let us pray. Direct our actions, O Lord, by your holy inspiration. Let every endeavor of ours, which begins with you, might, through your benefaction, be brought to successful completion. Gladden our hearts with the fragrance of your love. Brighten our eyes with the light of your guidance. Delight our ears to the melody of your words, and shelter us all in the stronghold of your providence. Look upon this meeting of our City Council and fill all who may participate, City Council members, city staff, representatives of our police and fire departments, residents and representatives of the commercial sector, and members of the general public providing input. Fill them all with the spirit of your wisdom and light. May the members of our City Council always act in accordance with your will, and may their decisions be for the greater good and well-being of all who live and work in our city. Enable us together to use wisely the gift of El Segundo, which you have so graciously entrusted to us, that we might continue to provide a unique place in which to live and work and raise our families. May we all be led closer to you and to one another, and to the eternal blessings you promise. May we never forget those members of our community who are less fortunate than are we. Amen.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we've got a couple special presentations, and Mayor Pro Tem, this one is, if you wouldn't mind, this is a great one.
Good evening. A commendation from the City of El Segundo. Whereas Colonel William Wenger has been accorded the Distinguished Eagle Scout Award upon nomination by the Orange County Council and the Boy Scouts of America. He was a registered scout in the Long Beach Area Council from 1954 to 2019, earned his Eagle Scout Award in 1963, and was the chief of the tribe of Talkets from 1963 to 64. Colonel Wenger served as a Cub Den leader, assistant scoutmaster, explorer post, advisor, Camp Talkets staff, camp commissioner, and member of the Executive Council. And whereas Colonel Wenger distinguished himself throughout his career as an Army officer, a commercial real estate executive, a college professor, a professional writer, with his continued service to God, country, and his fellow citizens by remaining true to the principles of the Scout Oath and Scout Law. And whereas Colonel Wenger, as an active duty, reserve, and National Guard officer, served more than 42 years of commissioned service, including Infantry Battalion Command during the LA riots and the Northridge earthquake response. After his initial military retirement, he volunteered for 4 combat tours as an infantry airborne ranger colonel in Iraq and Afghanistan. Colonel Wenger has been recognized as an outstanding alumnus of the U.S. Army War College and as a distinguished graduate of the American Military University. And whereas, notably, Colonel Wenger spent his extremely limited off-duty time while serving in Iraq and Afghanistan, organizing and leading efforts of fellow international scouters to revive, develop, and support the Boy and Girl Scouting programs of those countries while working with the World Organization of the Scout Movement. He has been involved with and serving scouting for more than 65 years, locally, nationally, and internationally. Colonel Wenger is currently an advisor to Post 558, the Infantry Learning for Life Explorer Post in Orange County, California. And now, therefore, on this 16th day of May, 2023, the mayor and members of the City Council of the City of El Segundo, California, hereby take great honor in commending Colonel William V. Wenger on receiving the Distinguished Eagle Scout Award and further commend Colonel Wenger on his distinguished career. Thank you, Colonel Wenger.
Colonel, would you like to say a few words? And then we have another person here that we're going to give a commendation to as well.
Oh, Mr. Mayor, City Council, fellow citizens, I am greatly honored by your recognition of me for the Distinguished Eagle Scout Award. I have lived with my wife here in El Segundo for more than 20 years, and I love the city. I love the people of El Segundo, and this means so much to me personally to be recognized by you all and by the citizens of our beloved city. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Colonel, you'll love hearing this. So we have also tonight, it's great timing, we are giving a commendation to Ainsley Gulden here, who is our first female Eagle Scout for Troop 219 in El Segundo. So let's give it up for Ainsley Gulden as well. Ainsley, why don't you say a few words, if you would, as well at the podium, please.
I guess thank you for the City Council for supporting me not only in my Eagle project, but also for Mayor Boyles for attending my ceremony. That was really special. Thank you. I know the scouting program, it has really helped me, it has really helped me develop my leadership skills and other more practical skills, and I'm so very grateful of the city's support of Girls in Scouting. Thank you.
Oh, okay. So we're going to take together and then maybe separate pictures? Okay, great. Here we go, guys. And 1, 2, and a couple more, and one more. Great. Now if we could take... Great. Here we go, guys. Make it real quick. And one more. Great. And now, Colonel, if I could have a picture, individual picture with you and the council. Thank you, sir. All right. And one more. Outstanding. Thank you so much. Ah.
Outstanding. I love it. All right. Next up, we have the introduction of the CERT team by Fire Department Engineer Jeff Gurney.
Good evening, Council. Pleasure to be here tonight. My name is Jeff Gurney. I've been with the El Segundo Fire Department for 17 years now. I've been the CERT coordinator for almost a decade. And I'm here to reintroduce the CERT program to El Segundo. I know we went through quite a hiatus with the pandemic. And let's start with what is CERT. Let's reintroduce everybody to it. It does stand for the Community Emergency Response Team. But historically, in 1985 is really the genesis of this program. It actually started when a group of Los Angeles city officials went to Japan, and they went there to study the extensive earthquake preparedness plans that they had. And what they learned was that the Japanese communities had taken extensive steps to train entire neighborhoods with just one aspect of alleviating devastation, the potential devastation from following a major earthquake. These single-function neighborhood teams were trained in either fire suppression, light search and rescue, first aid, or evacuation. That prompted this same team to, in September of 1985, to go to Mexico City. They investigated following that 8.1 magnitude earthquake that killed more than 10,000 people and injured more than 30,000 people. But what they really learned there was that Mexico City had no training program. However, large groups of volunteers still organized to save these victims and to perform light search and rescue operations. These volunteers are credited with over 800 saves. However, over 100 of these untrained volunteers did die during the 15-day operation. The lessons learned in Mexico City strongly indicated that a plan to train volunteers to help themselves and others was needed as an essential part of overall preparedness, survival, and recovery. In 1986, the Los Angeles Fire Department developed the pilot program to train a group of leaders in the Neighborhood Watch organization, and this first team of 30 people completed the training in early '86 and proved that the concept of a CERT program was viable. In 1987, however, the expansion of the program failed due to city resources until October 1st, when the Whittier Narrows earthquake hit. And this was LA's most devastating earthquake in 2 decades at the time. It was a 5.9 earthquake. This underscored the threat of an area-wide major-scale disaster and demonstrated the need to expedite the training of civilians to prepare for earthquakes. Following the Whittier Narrows earthquake, LA City took an aggressive role in creating the CERT program. And in 1993, FEMA adopted the program nationwide. There are more than 100 active faults here in the LA area. El Segundo is surrounded by the Inglewood Newport Fault, and we have the Santa Monica and Hollywood faults above us. We are an earthquake country. What we learned is that the community will come together and help, but if there isn't proper training and organization, many of these good Samaritans will suffer injury or even death trying to save others. The El Segundo Fire Department has trained over 1,500 civilians in search and rescue, fire suppression, and basic first aid over the last 30 years. Currently, we have over 100 residents trained as CERT members, ready to respond to any natural or man-made disaster that may strike. But we need more. It is our goal to have double the amount of CERT members by 2025. This is a call to action for the residents of El Segundo. Be prepared. It's coming. The next earthquake or natural disaster is on the horizon, and your El Segundo Fire Department resources will be overwhelmed. Other cities will not be able to send resources as they will be mitigating their own hazards. We believe it's everyone's responsibility to understand where they live and what hazards they potentially face. Here are some initial steps to prepare for a disaster. 1, keep and maintain an emergency kit with enough food, water, and supplies for 3 days per every member of the household. 2, keep and maintain a comprehensive first aid kit. 3, keep and maintain tools to shut off utilities and have communication supplies with batteries and a separate power supply. And lastly, join the El Segundo CERT program. We have developed a hybrid teaching system that allows you to do all the PowerPoints in the comfort of your own home and then join us at Fire Station 2 for an 8-hour hands-on training with your El Segundo firefighters. We will teach you to prepare for disaster, perform fire suppression, utility control, emergency medical operations, light search and rescue, and how to organize as a team to be more successful. More detailed information is available on our El Segundo Fire Department website. We recently trained 9 more residents just this last April, as it was our first class post the pandemic. We are looking for more residents to join this team, and we have now added the American Red Cross CPR certification, so when you take our CERT program, you will leave there with a CPR certification now. We will be opening up our Fall CERT Academy tomorrow. So please be on the lookout on social media and the fire department website to register. You will be able to start the online portion immediately. And this will prepare you for the Saturday, September 16th, hands-on training day at Fire Station 2. And I look forward to meeting the next class of our disaster emergency responders, and thank you very much for your time. Much appreciated.
The timing's good on that because Mr. George, just today during strategic planning, we talked about how one of the metrics that we look to in terms of preparedness for emergencies is the number of qualified CERT individuals in town. Do we know what that number is? Has that number changed much? I know we were in hiatus for the pandemic, but
I don't know that exact number, but I do know that that was definitely part of our priority list today during the strategic planning workshop.
I think that new approach is great, where
Yep.
you can do pretty much all the learning on your own and then the 8 hours in person with the Red Cross CPR. That's great.
I have a question. Is there an age limit? Like, do you have to be a certain age?
For the general CERT program, yes, you need to be a minimum of 18.
Okay.
To answer your question, Mayor Boyles, we currently have over 100. It is difficult to consistently monitor the number of CERT members in the community as people move out, and that is one of, I know we're going to be onboarding a new emergency services coordinator, and one of the first things that I'm going to want to do with that individual is to figure out a way that we can somehow maintain connection with these CERT members. To expand on your question, ma'am, we also provide BERT, which is Business Emergency Response Teams. We've had many businesses in town, including like Raytheon and Boeing, that will reach out, and we can do, because those are like mini cities in and of themselves. And we will build a program specifically around them. I would like to expand the program which is CERT, but with an S, and that is for schools. And that's where we can integrate with individuals, typically just high school.
Well, that's what I was wondering. During finals week, there's always a lot of dead time, or downtime, I should say. It would be, maybe from a civic perspective, if we could partner with the school and have, do the training at the school site, kids could get some extra credit for that class that they may want some extra credit for. So it would be great if you could reach out to Dr. Moore or the principal to see if we can create some program where at least 18-year-olds could take it during finals week or another week that's free.
Will do, ma'am. Yes, absolutely.
All right, thank you for that. Next up, we have Ms. Ravelis with the recap of Yelp Elite Tour of El Segundo.
Hi, good evening, Mayor Boyles, City Council members. My name is Christina Ravelis, Senior Management Analyst for Economic Development. A component of economic development beyond business attraction and retention is promoting the city as a destination for tourism. We've accomplished this throughout many years now through our Start Here marketing campaign. It's had been quite successful. And one of the things that we do here internally is we look at consistently creative ways, cost-effective ways to get third-party endorsements. So along with our PR strategist, Kristen Bergman, who is here tonight, we partnered with Yelp to bring a group of influential food writers, photographers, to highlight what El Segundo has to offer in our growing dining scene. So before I share with you some of the fantastic results and metrics, I want to show you a little behind the scenes of what it was to be here at the Yelp Elite Tour of El Segundo. It's going to be an incredible night.
we're gonna get to, stop by Metro Cafe, Brewport Tap House, Richmond Bar and Grill, Rock and Brews, and awesome Tapathon.
I actually came to this event 2019 before the pandemic, so I was super excited to come back. We are at Richmond Bar and Grill. This is my first time here, very exciting, and the food's good. It's always great to come to these events because you meet members of the Yelp community, some people that you've met online, but now you get to see them face to face, so it's really cool.
I love the elite community and just having access to different things. I thought this was a great opportunity to try something, and I've never been to El Segundo before. Yeah, so I was like, what a better way to do it than, come out to this event and take advantage of being Yelp Elite.
Yelp Elite 2023. Reporting for El Segundo Media, I'm Holly Anderson.
So as you can see, we really rolled out the red carpet for this elite group. We kicked things off at Old Town Music Hall, where we gave a brief history of El Segundo, and then we separated into 5 groups. And of course, that was a lot of fun. So, who is this influential group? Yelp Elite is a community of influential, diverse group of passionate writers and photographers, but you just can't be anyone. You have to have quality content, quality photos, well-written reviews. I want to take this opportunity to thank each participating establishment, starting off with Old Town Music Hall, Samoa, Richmond Bar and Grill, Brewport, Metro Cafe, Tapathon, and Rock and Brews. They provided complimentary drinks and bites, and they were all very, very delicious. But of course, this could not have been a total success with our elite guides. Beyond providing charismatic personalities that evening, they also provided fun facts and gave a history of El Segundo in each establishment. Thank you, Marcia Henson from the Chamber, Linda Johnson, longtime resident. Of course, Lance Giroux, council member, thank you very much for attending. City Manager Daryl George, and we had a couple of folks from E-Team, Tracy Weaver, Michael Allen, Director of Community Development, IT Director Jose Calderon. All right, so we received a lot of great feedback from the event. And in the PR marketing world, we like to use what we call social media impressions as well as media mentions to provide some context or at least gives a sense of the efficacy of the event or the campaign. So let's take a look at some of the tangible metrics here. We built awareness to over 1 million people in the LA metro area. These are people who are already interested in dining out or exploring nearby cities. So we're definitely targeting our identified targeted audience. Social media, great social media performance, a lot of great engagement there. We saw great success with non-followers, which means that either they've never actually engaged with our social media pages or this is their first time really being exposed to a lot of the El Segundo content. There is what we call a landing page where all of the photographs taken that evening, along with the reviews that were written by these elite members, they all live in the landing page of #Tour de El Segundo. Now, these photos and 5-star reviews really further help tell the story of El Segundo, and we have some creative ideas of what we're going to be doing to leverage all of this input. Well, from this it's a non-paid partnership. I should have mentioned that earlier. We also secured media coverage. The NBC California Live did a fun segment on Tapazon. We had about 22,000 viewerships that signed up to this fun segment. So again, another great way to expose the city. I wanted to bring your attention to these two quotes. And I'm going to read one in particular that grabbed my attention. Jason from Los Angeles said, "I never really looked closely or even realized that the city had a downtown area with a pretty good selection of restaurants and bars. After today, I've definitely had my mind change, and I'm going to have to come back because they were all great." And you'll find many, many more reviews like this for that evening. With that, I'd like to close. Thank you.
Thank you. Great stuff. Appreciate it. Okay, next up for presentations, Councilmember Baldino is going to read National Public Works Week proclamation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A proclamation from the City of El Segundo, California. Whereas public works professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, and services that are of vital importance to sustainable and resilient communities and to the public health, high quality of life, and well-being of the people of El Segundo. And whereas these infrastructure, facilities, and services could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of public works professionals who are engineers, managers, and employees at all levels of government and the private sector who are responsible for rebuilding, improving, and protecting our nation's transportation, drainage systems, water supplies, and water treatment and distribution systems, sanitary sewer collection systems, solid waste collection systems, maintenance of public buildings and other structures and facilities essential for our citizens. And whereas it is in the public interest for the citizens, civic leaders, and children in the city of El Segundo to gain knowledge of and to maintain an ongoing interest and understanding of the importance of public works and public works programs in their respective communities. And whereas the year 2023 marks the 63rd annual National Public Works Week sponsored by the American Public Works Association / Canadian Public Works Association, be it now. Now therefore, the Mayor and the members of the City Council of the City of El Segundo, California hereby designate the week of May 21st through 27th, 2023 as National Public Works Week and urge all citizens to join with representatives of the American Public Works Association / Canadian Public Works Association and government agencies in activities, events, and ceremonies designed to pay tribute to our public works professionals, engineers, managers, and employees, and to recognize the substantial contributions they make to protect our national health, safety, and quality of life.
I believe, who's going to accept that, Councilmember Baldino?
We have our Director of Public Works, Elias Assoon, and Street Maintenance Worker, Patrick Graham here.
Awesome.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. On behalf of Public Works Department and all my colleagues, I want to thank you and extend appreciation for all the support we're receiving from the City Council, and thank you so much in advance. You want to say a few words?
Well, Elias, I want to thank you. We took that tour a while ago. You introduced me to a lot of the folks who work in the engineering department, at the water department, at the street and maintenance department, and I really got to appreciate all the hard work you guys do to make this town, you know, the special place that we like. So thank you guys for everything you do for us.
Great, great. You're not only getting a lot done, but I'll say too, real quick, high level of courtesy and service. These gentlemen were in my back alley just this week doing work in an alley, and it's like, hey guys, you know how long it's going to be? And pull my car out. They're like, oh, we'll back up. We'll stop everything. I was like, no, I'm not going to disrupt your work. But just every time you meet them out in the street, they're absolutely courteous, and we love that. They represent the city well. So thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just have to say, there was a huge pothole on Imperial after the rains, and you guys fixed it within 24 hours. So thank you very much. Once you got called on that, because that was a Sunday evening, actually less than 24 hours, that Monday morning it was fixed. So thank you very much.
Yeah, and Mayor, if I could just add, I want to thank Patrick, too, for coming out tonight. I know we discussed this during the town hall that I had with the staff last week, and Patrick brought this up, and I said, you gotta come to the council meeting and accept this. Well, I don't know if I could come to the meeting, so it's a pleasure to see you here this year, because I know you're a hard worker at Public Works. Thank you.
Thanks again.
There you go. All right. Yeah, a couple photos. Did you want to open it up, sir? Yeah. There we go. Oh, that looks nice. That looks nice. Here we go. And one more, and one more. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thanks for coming, man. Appreciate it.
All right, that concludes presentations. We're on to public communications. City business only, 5-minute limit per person. No cards so far?
I have no cards this evening.
Okay. Anyone like to submit public comments? No, seeing none, okay. That's unusual. We're closing public comments. City manager, any follow-up comments in general? Hyperion, maybe?
Yes, Mayor and Council, as I have been doing now for several months, during the beginning of the meeting, I do provide update on several points associated with Hyperion. As you know, we're continuing to follow our Assemblymember Marisucci's bill, AB 1216, as it works its way through Sacramento. At this point, on May 10th, at its assembly meeting, the Appropriations Committee passed the bill. So if you recall, a month ago, we were at the Natural Resources Committee. Now it's Appropriations, so it's worked its way through those two. The bill will now go to the Assembly floor for a vote to see if it will go on to the Senate. Once the date of the vote is determined, we'll post the details on our Hyperion page of the city's website. Also, actually today, or maybe yesterday, yesterday, we were very fortunate in meeting with the new councilwoman from Los Angeles for the district that includes Hyperion, Councilmember Tracy Park. Her and several members of her staff and the City of Los Angeles Attorney's Office. We met via Zoom. Mayor Boyles, Councilmember Baldino, and myself attended the meeting. Very productive introductory meeting. Councilmember Park was very open, very involved in the conversation of, we gave her the history of Hyperion, where we are, where we'd like to go. She was very upfront about wanting to stay apprised of the issue. So it was it was a pleasure to have someone from Los Angeles at the table with us talking about issues related to Hyperion. You know, actually even gave me a staff person that I can deal with on a day-to-day basis. As for Hyperion itself, on Tuesday, the 23rd, they will be conducting a planned functionality test on the east 1 mile outfall discharge gate. According to Hyperion, approximately 0.25 million gallons of fully treated and disinfected effluent will be discharged to the 1 mile outfall. All of the discharge effluent will be immediately pumped back to the plant for treatment. So therefore, there will be no discharge of any secondary effluent to the Santa Monica Bay, so that there should not be any effect at all on us. The Perimeter Road project, as you know, has been in works for quite a while. Saturday, work continues to take place from 7 to 3 throughout May with very minimal construction noise. I know that was a problem several months ago, but right now the work is not generating noise at all. And then also, Hyperion continues to share its monthly AQMD reports. As you know, we worked very diligently in getting them to provide those reports to ourselves, to Dr. Stenstrom, and they are continually sharing those monthly reports on updates on the status of their odor mitigation efforts and other ongoing projects directly related to what they're doing out there at the plant. Since May 2nd, AQMD has received 19 odor complaints. and issued a notice of violation on May 3rd and May 5th for issues relating to AQMD rules and Hyperion's permit conditions. Neither of those NOVs were odor related. The next AQMD board hearing is scheduled for June 20th. All that information is on our website. And then finally, speaking of Dr. Stenstrom, I've been trying to get him to come to attend a meeting, and he tentatively will be at our meeting on June 20th to give an update on his report and his efforts in dealing with Hyperion. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. George. Any questions or comments?
I just have one question. On the pushing out of to test the 1 mile pipeline, you said they're pushing out treated water and then they're bringing it back to recapture it. Is that just a test? Because obviously they're not going to catch all the water that they pushed out. It's going to be different water. And when they do bring it back, are they just trying to test that they can do that in case of a spill?
Yes, that's exactly the case. They are not going to be dumping anything to the ocean. They just want to make sure that it's working.
Both ways.
Working. Yes.
And then when's the planned full out like emergency test?
They do that They do that every year, and they did that a few months ago, and they let us know, and that went very well.
Okay. And do we participate in that in any way?
Yes, they invited us to be part of that, and we were part of the process. And going forward, we could continue to be part of the process.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, next up is item A, procedural motions. Read all ordinances and resolutions on the agenda by title only. Do we have a motion to do so?
So moved.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Persick, second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0. Consent. Any pulls? No. Little caveat for me. I'm going to recuse myself specifically on item related to Smoky Hollow pilot parking project construction award, given my conflict of interest with property in that area. What is it, 15? 15, yeah, item 15.
On the consent.
Okay. So do we have a motion to approve items 6 through 15?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
6 through 14.
Well, we can do them all, just
Okay.
make note of it. Yeah.
Fair enough.
Do we have a second?
Yeah, Baldino seconds.
Thank you. All those in favor? Aye. Okay, 5-0 with that note on the recusal. All right, we're going to move up one public hearing. We're going to do item 17 before item 16 because we've got the City of Los Angeles here. So, give me 1 second here. All right, this is time and place here to fix for a public hearing related to an update on Los Angeles International Airport, LAX issues, and proposed resolution authorizing sale of residential sound insulation, RSI, demonstration house at 910 Hillcrest Street. City Clerk, was proper notice of the hearing given in a timely manner?
Yes, it was.
Thank you. Has any written communication been received regarding this public hearing?
No, Mayor.
Okay, public hearing is now open. Mr. George, who will make the presentation?
Yes, Mayor. The first part of this presentation will be to provide the council with an update on the LAX issues. As you know, we've been working with the general manager of LAX for quite a while now on implementation of the settlement agreement. And our presentation tonight will be led by Ms. Osa Wolf, who has been leading our internal monthly roundtables, if you will, to discuss all the issues so that we're all kept abreast of what's going on. So I'll turn it over to Osa, who I know has a short PowerPoint presentation.
Thank you. I am going to share my screen, and it's very nice to see you all this evening virtually. Thank you for inviting me to speak. All right, as the city manager indicated, I'm Osa Wolf. I am an attorney at a law firm called Shute, Mahoney and Weinberger. We're based in the San Francisco Bay Area, but we represent public agencies all over the state. I'm part of my firm's airport team, which means that I represent communities impacted by airports, and I've been assisting El Segundo with LAX issues since the late 1990s. Let's see here. All right, so here's an overview of the format for this item. I have a staff presentation for you that I think will run about 10 minutes. It's just 10 PowerPoint slides, and it was in your packet. I'll be handing a portion of the presentation over to Elias, your Public Works Director, The presentation covers two main topics. The first is a general update on LAX issues, and the second is some specific proposed actions related to the RSI demonstration house. After our brief staff presentation, we can of course answer questions and then open the floor to public comment, which I believe there's some staff here from LAWA, Los Angeles World Airports, and that would be an opportune time for them to speak. Finally, the council will have a chance to deliberate and take action. Oops. Okay. So let's jump into the general update on LAX issues. As I said, I've been assisting El Segundo with LAX related issues for going on 25 years now. During that time, El Segundo has been consistently and actively engaged with LAWA and FAA with the goal of ensuring that LAX is a good neighbor and doesn't operate or grow in a way that results in harm to El Segundo. LAWA regularly advances proposals to expand and modernize its facilities, and as a result, El Segundo has needed to monitor the airport carefully and to engage regularly. On this slide, I've listed some of the recent examples of the city's engagement. As you can see, we have sometimes litigated issues in court, and we've sometimes engaged in other formal legal proceedings. I've also highlighted the favorable agreements that we've entered into recently, both settlements and pre-litigation MOUs. Of those agreements, the one that's most relevant now is the 2021 ATMP, that's Airport Terminal Modernization Plan, MOU. And that's going to be the focus of my presentation tonight. This slide gives you a quick overview of that MOU. Time is limited, of course, so I'm not going to get into all the details, but I do want to hit the high points that I think will be most interesting to the council and the public. This slide is that overview. Subsequent slides will get into a little bit more detail. In the left-hand column here, you can see that I've listed some of the key topics. On the right, I've summarized LAWA's obligations. So, for example, as you know, one of the issues El Segundo has experienced over the years has been a problem of insufficient parking on the airport, which has resulted in airport-related tenants along Imperial having spillover parking impacts on El Segundo neighborhoods. To address this, in the 2021 MOU, LAWA committed to requiring that in its lease renewals to provide for adequate parking for LAX tenants, employees, contractors, sublessees, and visitors. And most recently, we saw that implemented when LAWA entered into a lease with Southwest Airlines for a ground service equipment facility lease. Okay. So the next slides that I'm going to run through will give you a little bit more detail on some of the other topics listed in this left-hand column. Okay, the first topic there was cooperation, information sharing, and communication. And this has been a seat at the table for the city and has been beneficial for in terms of accessing key decision-making over at the airport. It's helped us to clarify and advance El Segundo's interests with the airport. The most recent staff-to-staff meeting was just a couple of weeks ago. And I don't know, it's possible that LAWA staff is planning to report on that, but I also wanted to pause here in case the city manager wanted to say anything about that meeting.
Yes, thank you.
Gerald, do you want to jump in?
Sure. Yes, we did meet last week, as we have pretty much on a quarterly basis. We've kind of rotate. They come to visit us. We go out there, and I think they would much prefer to come to our facility. So the heads are nodding. But yes, in the little over a year that I've been here, we've met several times. Very cooperative, very productive all-hands meetings. Where we all share information, kind of cross the T's and dot the I's and make sure that we're on target with a number of things. We raise issues, any concerns, what's going right, what we need to focus on. So yes, the dialogue has been very open and productive, and I foresee us continuing these quarterly meetings until everything gets done. Thank you, Osa.
All right, thank you. So I want to pick up
Osa,
there.
can I
The
cut
other
you off for
things
one
you
quick
see
second?
on this.
Just on those meetings, does
Yeah.
the FAA bring anyone from air traffic control to that?
No, no.
I believe that was a separate meeting that you had previously at the airport, at the tower with both FAA and maybe even LAWA in attendance, but definitely FAA.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So you also see on this slide some visual representations. What I've tried to pick out is to indicate the data that we're starting to see at a higher level from LAWA. This allows the city to monitor what's going on at the airport and to understand what's driving the noise and other impacts on El Segundo, and to address those issues on a technical level. I've included a couple images here that I think illustrate that. On the left, you see a visual representation of what's called early turns at LAX. That's when an aircraft takes off from the South Airfield and then turns left over El Segundo early before it reaches the shoreline. This is the kind of data that we monitor closely, comes out each month. And on the right, you see a photograph of some people standing in front of Air Force One. This is a photograph from last year's gate count when LAWA hosted, and they do this each year, host us to go tour the airport and to see the current condition, the number of gates. So the bottom line here is that we are seeing improved availability of actionable LAX data. And this has been an area of good strides. As part of a larger trend, I would say, of improved communication, information sharing, and cooperation between El Segundo and LAWA. Okay, now I want to turn to RSI, residential sound insulation. This is something I know both your council and your residents already know a great deal about, but I've got a couple of recent updates for you. The good news out of the last couple of years is that RSI responsibility has been successfully transitioned from the City of El Segundo to LAWA. El Segundo remains engaged in advocating for its residents' interests, but the day-to-day operations of the program are now LAWA and its consultants' responsibility. One of the few remaining things El Segundo needs to do to wrap up its RSI program is to sell the RSI demonstration house. This is at 910 Hillcrest Street. It was purchased in 1990 with FAA grant funding. And with that funding source and with the California Surplus Lands Act, there are a few procedural hoops that we need to jump through before we can sell the house. And that's where the resolution in your packet comes in. The council is being asked to approve this resolution to declare the house surplus. There'll be then a 60-day period to ensure compliance with the Surplus Lands Act, notice going out to potentially interested affordable housing and other buyers. Because this is a small lot with a high-value home, we are not anticipating any responses to that notice, but HCD still requires us to go through the process. Assuming we do not get any responses, the next step is for staff to work with a realtor to market and sell the house for fair market value. The city will be reimbursed for its costs for that process, and the net sale proceeds are going to go to fund RSI in El Segundo. Okay, now at this stage, I'm going to hand the next 3 slides over to Elias because he has been the staff lead on the various projects along Imperial. So go ahead, Elias.
Thank you. So again, good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. So the first, that slide is regarding Imperial Highway, the green infrastructure project, which includes the safety improvements. The limits of this project, as shown, is from California Street to Vista Del Mar. This project has received overwhelming support from the Environmental Committee and all the participating residents of City of El Segundo, and is expected to be approved by LA County by the end of this year. This project, the scope of it includes new trees, new landscaping, irrigation system, hedges, bioswales, dry wells, bike lanes, and wayfinding signage to direct pedestrians to safe crossing locations. The estimated cost of this project is $12 million. LAWA's contribution toward this project is $4 million, and they already have agreed to pay that. And the city's participation is $500,000, and yours truly brought this item before City Council, and the City Council agreed to spend $500,000 from Measure W funding toward this project a few months ago. If you go to the next slide, please.
Will do. There you go.
Thank you. So this slide is really in more detail about this significant project. As I indicated, it includes bioswales in the median, which will consist of native planting materials. The landscaping, as I said, includes new trees, flowers, and shrubs. And as you can see, the bike lanes that are proposed, it's going to take the bikers to the beach entrances. And the hedges will create a visual and physical impediment to discourage pedestrians from jaywalking. Next slide, please. The next project along Imperial Highway is the Imperial Highway North Side aesthetic improvements. The limits of this project is from California to Pershing. And this project is, the cost estimate for this project is $20 million. And LAWA plans to improve, as part of this project, the aesthetics of the frontage property along north side of Imperial Highway with landscaping, sidewalks, and parking similar to what is on the south. And keep in mind, we plan to put a nice, beautiful entry feature at the corner of Imperial and Main, so we will try to get LAWA to see if they could do the same on the north side of the Imperial Highway. So they have taken this project to their board, and the LAX-CIP has included this project going forward, and they will continue to plug us in the process as this project gets off the ground. The next project is the limits on use of haul route and road condition maintenance. Really, this really includes the bonds that LAWA is going to require their contractors to include into the contract. So in case any damage is caused on any of the routes, including Imperial Highway, that the money will be used to repair those damages. And I'd be glad to answer any questions regarding these three slides. Yes, sir.
The first slide looks like there was about a $7.5 million gap still, or
yes.
Okay.
So the LA County has taken this project through various committees, and all the committees have agreed to fund this project utilizing Measure W funding. So the last step is for LA County to really get this approved by the board. And we are expecting that because this project has gotten a tremendous amount of support from everybody through the process. So this project is practically funded.
Thank you.
All right.
Go ahead.
Thanks.
I just want to thank you for this. This is great news. That has been an eyesore in this community, especially that's kind of where people enter our residential district. This will be a huge improvement of what we have there now.
Yes.
I would just ask that when you're planting the native plants, that you would also include the seaside buckwheat and the other blue butterfly plants that are being pushed in our community so that we can get as much of those surrounding El Segundo as possible. I think this would be a great area to try to incorporate that as well.
Sure, this item came up during an environmental committee, and we certainly will do that.
Great.
Of course, yes.
And I just had a question. So
Yes.
this is great. Thank you for doing it, and thank
Sure.
you, LAWA, for doing this. I think it's much needed, and people will be very appreciative of it. My question to us, though, as a city, the land on the south side where, from Little Imperial to Main Imperial, there's that land, because we're doing the sign on the west side. But
Correct.
there's the east side. A lot of people traipse back and forth and cut through to cross over the street. What do we have, since this is going to be beautified, the west side's going to be beautified, of the median between Little Imperial and Main Imperial, do we have anything on our books for that east side of that same area, between Little Imperial and Main Imperial?
Yes, I was planning on having some improvements along the southern side of Imperial Highway with if you would improving the bike lane that we have and also the lighting. As this project gets to be developed, I plan to include those as part of this project, and hopefully there'll be sufficient funding in order, to do that, because it's already, the bike lanes are already included. So if the lighting and other things cannot get done through this way, then we're gonna have to find maybe another source of funding to do that. But we already are working closely with the LA County regarding the improvements on the south side that are needed as well.
City Attorney, question for you on the liquidation of that 910 Hillcrest. Are we allowed to attach any covenants to that to prevent the lot split? Or is it subject to normal property rules in California?
It's as zoned as it is today, and if it
That could be
would be
for-
qualified for an ADU and whatever other laws would apply to it.
Swell. I got one more question for you, Les. This is great in terms of redoing all that infrastructure on Imperial. What are we doing on a recurring basis, though? I know Mr. Arbachi was really helpful recently, but it continues to be an issue in the interim.
Yes.
That it's just a magnet for trash.
Right.
That median, you clean it up, and within a week,
Yeah.
it's just back
Yeah.
to where it was. So, what's the solution going forward in terms? We do all this beautification, then how do we maintain it?
I've been appealing to City of LA, and you've been copied on some of the emails and repeatedly requested them to maintain the median. And I've made tickets to repair the broken curbs, and I'm working with LAWA staff and Samantha. And they've been very helpful in bringing this up to the attention of the City of LA, but I'm afraid we just have to keep pushing and telling them about the needed maintenance issues that this stretch of Imperial is in need of till this project gets implemented. The problem is, and they tell me right to my face, City of LA does not have any funding at all to maintain this roadway, none whatsoever. And the last time they came out there and do the cleaning, it went all the way to the mayor's office, and it was you who helped me to get them out there to clean up the median.
Is it something that the new council member has? Does she have any sway in terms of this is her
I was just going to
district?
bring that up, Mayor, that this will definitely be on my list to talk with her chief deputy, since we've got this new relationship now. So I will definitely bring this up in our next discussion.
Okay, thank you.
And then last question, on
Yes.
the RSI program, is there a deadline for people to apply?
I defer that to OSA.
And I have not heard of a deadline yet. Michael Allen on your staff is really quite knowledgeable in this area, and it may be that LAWA staff could answer as well. But basically, they're just getting started, so I'm not aware of any deadline.
Yeah, I won't elaborate too much because I think LAWA can probably provide better detail, but there's going to be a rolling program for the next several years. And so we're just initiating the pilot program, first 60 some odd homes or 58 homes, which will kick off in the next couple months here. And then for the next several years, they're going to be doing rounds of 100 homes or more at a time. So there currently is no deadline. There is a deadline on when the program has to be finished by, but that piece I'm not entirely sure. So we'll get more information momentarily. Yeah.
Any more questions from me?
I think we're good. I think we're back to OSA.
All right, thanks. This is my last slide. So what's next? El Segundo's recent approach to LAX has been, I'd say, quite successful. So it makes sense to continue to do what you've been doing. Careful monitoring, steady engagement, and strong advocacy. In particular, we're looking forward to continued progress on the Imperial Highway projects that Elias told you about. We will continue to stay on top of the available data that we have from the airport and advocate for more as needed. We're going to engage on the RSI program that LAWA is now operating, and of course working to wrap up El Segundo's program by selling that RSI demo house. We expect the Caltrans noise variance, which is a formal proceeding, may kick off second half of this year. But the next big thing on the horizon is cargo. As Lawa knows, El Segundo has been and will be advocating for the existing cargo uses that are west of Sepulveda to be moved away from that area and for any replacement uses to be compatible with the nearby residences. El Segundo also continually presses for cargo flights to comply with LAX's preferential runway policy, which means basically taking off from the inboard runway further away from homes, even when that might be inconvenient for a cargo operator. And finally, LAWA's Board of Airport Commissioners this week on their agenda on Thursday has a major item, $8 million item, to authorize a pre-development agreement for LAWA's cargo project. So this, like I said, this cargo thing is the next thing on the horizon. All right, I promised that was my last slide, and it is. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions before we close this part of the hearing? No.
Not a question, but just an enhancement of that cargo piece. I think it gets lost a little bit, but the non-preferential south runway that gets used for the vast majority of the cargo flights through my living room. I cannot emphasize enough that I know that's often at the discretion of air traffic control, but that is something that is well within their discretion to control, and probably next to early turns, the most aggravating thing for residents in terms of noise pollution. And I guess my only other question is, do we know when we will see the significant changes to roadway access to 96th Street from, instead of the Sepulveda access to Century?
That would be a terrific question to ask LAWA staff.
Mr. Abachi, anyone on your team want to address that one? Yeah, thanks. Yeah, oh, good point. We are now in, okay, so let's see here. Public hearing is now open for public input. So, Mr. Abachi, applicant, sorry. Formality, please.
Good evening, Mayor Boyles and council members. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to come before you today and to speak. With myself today is Samantha Bricker and Becca Doughton from our staff and Samantha's been, you know, the real leader of all the activities that we've
Justin, you mind stepping a little closer to the mic?
Sorry about
so
that.
You can pick it up. That's okay, thanks.
Is that better? Thank you. Sorry about that. Samantha has been, you know, really taking the lead here in many of these activities and pushing them forward. And, you know, three and a half years ago when I took on this role, one of my big commitments was to be a better neighbor and make sure that LAWA is a better neighbor to our communities and this community in particular. And hopefully that the steps that we've taken in the last 3.5 years have shown that we are committed to that promise to be a better neighbor. And we will continue with that commitment to this community and to surrounding communities around LAWA, that we strive to continue to be a better neighbor. We know that we cause noise, we cause emissions, we're an airport, so we can't help doing that, but we try to do anything we can to try to mitigate the impacts and make sure we're being as responsible socially as we can in our efforts. I want to thank you and your team and your staff. And Daryl has been fantastic, and the whole team, and the collaboration that we've had to be able to push some of these things forward. And you know, it's long discussions when we were putting the ATMP in place, and but we were committed to the promises and the obligations that we committed to in that agreement, and we're hopefully you see that we are following through and meant what we said when we said we were going to be committed to them. Lots of happening today. So the ATMP is in full force. We've procured 3 of the 4 major aspects of the ATMP. So the question was around the roads. So the ATMP roadway project, we have contracted with a design builder, and that just cleared City Council. So we'll be engaging with the design of the roadways as part of the ATMP post haste, and that will be actually that's the part that is very challenging because we have to get the phasing right because we have to build these roads while we continue to operate the airport, and we have to make sure that we're able to accommodate all the traffic that's quite heavy now, as you may have seen. And so it's going to be a very, very drawn out and complex phasing process that we're going to be embarking on right now. So we don't know the answer to the questions that were asked as far as what it's exactly going to look like and when it's going to be available, but we're in the process of designing those roads right now.
Thank you.
Concourse Zero is we've had the lease with Southwest.
Justin, do you mind, just because the public's going to watch this at some point, just a little background on Concourse Zero? We know
Sure.
what that means, but yeah.
So
thank you.
Concourse Zero is going to be an extension of the existing Terminal 1. And it's a concourse because there'll be no access to that. It'll be just 9 new gates that are added to Terminal 1. And Southwest we've engaged with Southwest to do that project. And we've just gone to the board and had our initial agreement with Southwest to go and do an initial design and a costing of that effort. And we'll be going back to our board in probably about 18 months or so with a final price and getting the final approval for the funding for that project. But that's moving forward.
When would that likely break ground, if you had to guess?
Well, that's a great question. So there's a lot of dependencies for that project. The area where that project is going to be is where our LA exit lot is right now. And we have to maintain the LA exit lot until our people mover train is in operation, which we're currently looking at the end of 2004 for that. So we have to wait for that. Also, we have to take down Skyway. So it's also dependent upon the roads project. But we can break ground before the roads, but we do need to have LA exit. So I would say probably early 2005 before we're breaking ground on that project.
So is the People Mover project on track? And the second question is your airport traffic back to pre-COVID days?
So the current plan for the enablement of the People Mover is at the end of 2004. So yes, we just entered into a settlement agreement with the developers there to agree on what that new date is going to be. Of course, the big issue is going to be around how the systems happen. So the guideway is up, and they're installing the systems and finishing out the stations right now. But the big unknown right now is how the systems will actually operate, because it's going to be one of the most used driverless train in the state. And so the CPUC is going to be very, very strict on how that operates. So that's the unknown right now, is how that system's work is going to be kind of unfold. So, but we're still targeting the end of 2024 right now. I forgot the other question, sorry.
Are you back to pre-COVID?
Yes. So we're not back to pre-pandemic passenger traffic. We are at about 87% of where we were pre-pandemic. The big issue for us is international travel. That's still lagging, especially from Asia. We're an Asia gateway, and we depend heavily on the Asia market, and China is not back yet in any form of what it was before. And it has nothing to do with the pandemic anymore. It's a geopolitical issue that the countries are restricting the number of flights that can go between the countries. So until we get that back, we won't be able to probably meet our numbers. We are waiting for also for Hong Kong to come back. Hong Kong to come back slowly. Australia and New Zealand are not fully back either. And believe it or not, domestic travel is not back. We have there's a huge demand out there right now, but the airlines don't have the capacity to be able to put out there. So they would like to put more flights in the air, but they just don't have the resources and the aircraft to do that. And so we're actually only about 90% of our domestic travel as well. We're anticipating that by the end of next year, hopefully earlier, but certainly by the middle end of next year, we'll be back to pre-pandemic traffic, assuming China comes back in some form.
Thank you very much, Mr. Amachi. Appreciate it. All right, are there any other public comments? Okay, do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Have a second?
For a second?
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0. All right, council discussion. We have a couple items before us. One is to adopt a resolution declaring the property at 910 Hillcrest Street to be surplus land and authorizing its sale. Ultimately, the other one is authorize staff to proceed with the selection of a realtor, establishing base qualifications and using a lottery system. But before we get to that, any further council discussion?
Good news from Lawa. Who would have thought?
This is I don't want to take this down a rabbit hole, but did we look at any other possible uses that we could use that property for? I mean, once we get rid of property, we never get it back.
It's not, it's in the city's name, but legally, the ownership, the equity ownership is in LAWA and the FAA. And so at this point, and for the last 15, 20 years, it's really been more of a liability. We've been trying to sell it literally for that long and to get it off the city's hands. So
We can't put a mini park there or anything like that.
No.
Because even though we bought it with a grant, it's not really ours, equity-wise.
Right.
At least that money's being put back into El Segundo. That's the good thing.
I don't know why the deal was structured the way it was so many years ago. It would have been easier if it hadn't been, and for all the parties, I'm certain, but the city has no equity in it.
Very well.
A resolution of the City Council of the City of El Segundo declaring the property at 910 Hillcrest Street, El Segundo, to be surplus land and authorizing its sale.
Who will introduce the ordinance?
It's a resolution actually ready for
Oh,
adoption.
sorry. Wrong public hearing item. That was on me, Tracy, not you. Yeah. All right, so who would like to move approval?
So moved.
You have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
5-0. Okay, would someone like to move approval of authorizing staff to proceed with the selection of a realtor?
Sure. Baldino moves.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you, Drew, on the second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Chris, did you aye? I did. Oh, cool, 5-0. I just want to say thank you to Osa Wolf for 25 years of representation. Kobe King, you've been probably doing at least 2 decades, right? 15 years, sorry, 15 years. Still, that's a long time. And thank you, Justin. Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you, Samantha. It's been great to work with you guys. And it's like Mayor Pro Tem said, it's good to have good news coming out of LAWA. So we appreciate it. Thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you.
All right, we are on to, I guess we're back to item 16, which is also a public hearing. This is the time and place hereto fixed for a public hearing to waive the first reading and reintroduce an ordinance amending El Segundo Municipal Code Title 7, 13, and 15 to streamline the permitted uses and development standards in all zones and implement several cleanup, clarifying, and conforming provisions in chapters, sections 722, 1313.2, 1516, 1524, 1525, 1527, 1528, 15214, 15215, 154, 155, 156, 157, 158, 1510, 1515, 1518 5, 1530, 1531 3 through 1531 6, and 1532 9. And find it is exempt under the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA, pursuant to CEQA guidelines 15060C3, 15061B3, and 15168C2. City Clerk, was proper notice of this hearing given in a timely manner?
Yes, it was.
And thank you. Has any written communication been received regarding this public hearing?
Yes.
Yes.
It's
Got
been
that
uploaded
email
to the
from-
website as well.
Right, on the website. Great, thank you. Public hearing is now open. I see Mr. Allen here to present, I'm assuming, Mr. George? Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the City Council. Good evening. Thank you for reading the title. Saves me from doing so. Tonight, we're here back before the City Council with the subject text amendment. If you recall, at the April 18th City Council meeting, we discussed several items that we would like to amend, including the floor area ratio calculation and the fence height, and Continental Development had expressed some suggestions, and Just to remind the council, we actually opened and closed the public hearing during the last time, but we did renotice it since it was such a robust text amendment, and there is a representative from Continental here, just in case they did want to share. The council can reopen that public comment. But we did receive a letter after some email communication and discussion with Continental that they would like to defer their amendments or their work related to properties that they withhold or they're in holding within the mixed-use South Zone at a later date. And so they're looking forward, and we're looking forward to working with them in the future at a later date specific to fence height. So otherwise, there were no specific recommendations that came out of those conversations other than memorializing what we had agreed to during the discussion during the last council meeting. So there are 3 changes that Paul, our principal planner, did absorb into the revised text amendment, that being modifying the net floor area calculation to net out bathrooms and any common hallway access or common area. Also, we added, just for the sake of adding some additional flexibility, we added an increased discretion under the director's authority to allow adjustments for fences and walls not to exceed the 2-foot addition to the baseline standard. And so there are several findings that we added to give the director authority to add the 2 feet. Anything above that would then have to go through Planning Commission consideration. The third was the comment that I believe the Mayor Pro Tem brought up during the last discussion, which was adding back the service stations into the CRS zone. So with those 3 changes, we're back here before you to reintroduce the item. And just a reminder, it was coincidental, but earlier today we were discussing times when staff anecdotally keep track of things that are intended to make development easier in El Segundo. And this is a long-awaited effort that Paul Samaras has headed up over the last several years. It's a huge lift and will continue to do so. But this is a great example of when staff has taken the time to keep track over years of things where we frequently encounter misinterpretations or lack of clarity in the code or difficulty for developers in navigating the code. And we end up bringing it to commission and council to codify and clean up that language and make it a little bit easier for those folks that do business in our community. So with that, I'd like to thank Paul and then hand it back to the city council for any further questions.
Thank you, Mr. Allen, and thank you, Mr. Samaras, for all your hard work on this. All right, so let's see. Public hearing is now open for public input. Would anyone like to speak on this item? Okay, no cards either. Do I have a motion to close public hearing?
So moved.
Have a second?
Second, Pimentel.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
5-0. Okay, we're on to council discussion.
Thank you for this task, and the idea is by making this simpler, hopefully it saves some of your time answering questions about why does section 6C say this, but on this page I have a drawing that says this. So this is kind of the gruel that it takes to go through to clean this up, and I appreciate your efforts.
Great. Anything else? Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Mike. All right. Do we have actually, City Attorney, well, this one is an ordinance to read by title only, correct?
Yes, Mayor. An ordinance amending Title 15 of the El Segundo Municipal Code to streamline the permitted uses and development standards in all zones and implement several cleanup, clarifying, and conforming provisions is ready for introduction.
We just need one council member to introduce.
Correct.
First, so moved.
Great. Thank you. So,
be brought back for a potential second reading and adoption at your June 6th council meeting.
excellent. All right. Thank you. Moving along here. We're on to item 18. This is the Resident and Business 2023 survey results regarding satisfaction with city services, otherwise known as the Net Promoter Survey results. And I see Mrs. Voss queuing up a presentation.
Yes, Mayor, Deputy City Manager Voss will provide this presentation.
Hopefully they're switching. Okay, good evening, Mayor, members of council. This is our 6th annual customer satisfaction Net Promoter Score. We started in 2017. We skipped 2021 due to the pandemic, but here we are back again. I'd like to begin by acknowledging Diane Chabon, who's here this evening. She's our communications manager, who helped get the survey together and out, and sent reminders trying to encourage more feedback. This is a key project for the communications division, and she had to learn Qualtrics and kind of try to figure that out very quickly. So, successfully. All right, so what's the purpose of the Net Promoter Survey? Overall satisfaction with city services, customers' loyalty. Our customers are businesses and residents, obviously, and assess customer satisfaction on multiple attributes. So there's the Net Promoter question, and then there's a series of attribute questions. And then we use this feedback to improve our services, see where we can do better, see what we're doing well. So we sent the survey out to 6,965 residents and businesses, a total of 976 completed, which is a response rate of 14%. Resident survey response rate was 20.5, and that's down from last year from 25% to 20.5%. So we're seeing a decrease in responses this year. Even more significantly, we received 365 surveys on the business side, which was 9%, and last year it was 20%. So what is a Net Promoter Score? It's pretty rigorous to get a high score on Net Promoter. A lot of people hear, oh, okay, 40 on Net Promoter, 40 out of 100, that's definitely an F, but that's not how it works. A 9 or a 10, people who say 9 or 10 on the Net Promoter question are promoters. People who say 7 or 8 are passive. So I think an 8 might be a promoter, but in this case, it's not, it's a passive. And then anything 6 or below is considered a detractor. Our resident Net Promoter Score this year was 49, 61% promoters, minus 12% detractors yields the Net Promoter Score of 49, which is a decrease of 2. Last year it was 51. And here's our comparison year over year. The line is going in the wrong direction, but fairly flat. Here's another depiction of the results. You can see the promoters have decreased, the passives have stayed fairly consistent, and then the detractors are also just edging up a little bit here. Primary concerns. So we looked at, so there are opportunities for respondents to give written summaries of what their concerns are. One of the questions, so there's a Net Promoter question, would you recommend El Segundo? And then after that question, there's a question that says, what have we done to earn your loyalty? And then the next question is, what can we do better? So then we looked at all of those answers and we compiled them into a few key areas where we could improve. These are detractors, scores of 6 or less. Issues related to odor and air quality, predominantly Hyperion, also some mention of Chevron and LAX. Police presence, actually seeing police officers patrolling, seeing cars going up and down Main Street through the neighborhoods. Residents reported a decrease in that. Issues related to the loss of the city's small town feel, overdevelopment, rapid growth, wanting to keep El Segundo as it has been for many years as a nice, quaint, small town. Housing and cost of living increase, not something that the city can influence too much, but definitely something that residents are concerned about. And then parking issues, lack of parking. Some comments about permitting and things like that. I always like to include some quotes that are positive to give some good feedback. The town has a quaint spirit and is generally quiet for a beach town, but still provides all of the amenities. Relatively safe community, good schools, good service, good neighbors. Lower crime than surrounding cities. That gives you some perspective of, you know, there's some concern about crime, but they also feel that crime is lower here than in other areas. Excellent education, great parks, rec park. Community feeling remains strong, high property values, fast police and fire department response. Small town feel in a big city, safe environment for residents, excellence in schools, parks, recreation, provides for all residents of all ages. So then we go on to our attribute ratings. And these are I won't read all these. These are the attributes that we asked our residents to rate. And the attribute ratings are measured on this 1 to 5 Likert scale methodology. A score of 4.2 means very satisfied, 4.2 and above, and then satisfied, and then we don't have any that are neutral, dissatisfied, or very dissatisfied, so that's good news. Here are the responses on this scale. Number 1, every year, responsiveness, knowledge, and competency of fire and paramedic services, and availability and responsiveness of police department services. So those are considered to be very satisfied. All the blue are satisfied, and again, we don't have anything below that. And here's the 6-year comparison on all of these metrics. You can see that the police department has gone down a little bit, 4.36 to 4.31. Fire has gone up a little bit. These are very minor fluctuations, fairly consistent across the board in all the categories. And then finally, overall, how has the city improved? Are we doing better? Are we doing worse? How's the city doing? Just a general question. And based on the scale, that same scale, the 1 to 5, we got a 3.21, which means about the same. No significant improvement, not doing better, not doing worse, about the same. Okay, and then we go on to our business survey results. We had a net promoter score of 55, which is exactly what we got last year, which is very interesting. I mean, even the ratios are the same. It falls in the great range. And again, we started pretty low on that one, and then we are now leveling out at 55. Still one of our highest scores. You can see exactly the same, 67, 21, 12 for the promoters, detractors, and very consistent. And let me know if you have any questions on any of these. I know I'm going fast, but I think you all appreciate brevity. So business detractor concerns, issues related to supporting small businesses, keeping things local, bringing family-owned businesses, keeping family-owned businesses in town, police presence, again, seeing police officers, visibly seeing police officers patrolling, parking, speeding, traffic safety, issues with permitting and inspection processes, some confusion there with some of the respondents. Took too long, I didn't understand the process, those kind of comments. Positive, easy to work from El Segundo. Questions regarding taxes and processes are answered easily by phone, very pleasant. Best to live and work, good restaurants, excellent neighborhoods. Draws great businesses and restaurants to the quaint downtown area. Went through a building project recently and we're very happy with the results. Permits came through in a very timely manner. City services are incomparable. I like that one. But it's the people who live here that make the greatest difference. Kind customer service from city employees. Their help and patience when we first moved our office to El Segundo was greatly appreciated. Again, our attribute rankings, they're a little different attributes that we're looking for from businesses. Those are the attributes that people were asked about. We only had one in the very satisfied range, which was the business license renewal process. And if you recall, a few years back, we got that system online. It's going very smoothly. People are across the board very happy with it. And then we're seeing a slight, I'll go to the year-over-year comparison. So we're seeing a dip.
Just one thing I want to note, it's interesting that from the resident standpoint, police and fire are both incredibly responsive, like top 2 attributes, but on business, they're lower.
Correct.
Wonder what drives that.
And going lower even than previous years.
Maybe because they're experiencing more issues in the last few years, regionally, that's affected us. I don't know.
There were comments about, the survey went out on the weekend where there were several break-ins on Main Street. There were comments about that. And that, every year we do the survey, there's something that seems to happen along the time that we send out the survey. So that's could be a contributing factor, but that's obviously not the only thing that's making them respond in this way.
And it's a 9% response rate of 300 people, so it's hard to draw huge conclusions over. It's tough to get people to respond to surveys, I get it.
what's the, all right, keep going. I have a
Okay.
comment more than a question, yeah.
All right. All right. Again, that overall city improvement question. The businesses feel that the city's made some improvement over the past year, so 3.63 compared to the residents, which was about the same. Conclusions, the resident net promoter score went down by 2 points, while businesses remain exactly the same. Much lower response rate on the business side especially. Disappointed to see that, so we're going to be working on ways to get more engagement with the next survey. Business license renewal process and responsiveness, knowledge, and competency of fire and paramedic services are the highest in business and residents respectively. Public safety is a concern, supporting small businesses, air quality. Overall, the businesses felt that we had made some improvement, and the residents felt like we were about the same as last year. And that concludes my presentation, so I can go back to any of those if you have questions.
You know,
or
I was
more
just thinking
details.
about what Councilmember Baldino said about the response rate for business. There's gotta be a connection with the remote work environment. It's just less connection with the city. If you think about it, Mattel just went back to more than 1 day a week recently. And so I gotta believe maybe some of that is driving that. But when I look at the primary detractor concerns about, particularly on the residential side, odor, air quality, police presence, losing a small town feel, housing and cost of living increases and parking issues. Those are all the exact same things that were in our top 10 strategic priorities basically today out of strategic planning. So to me, this is a storytelling issue. This comes back to communication is we hear you loud and clear. This is an opportunity for us as a city because council vision comes up low each time. And I think that is a communication gap because we are aligned with what our residents and our businesses want. I don't think they know it. So I think this is an opportunity to share that, hey, we agree, and by the way, we're addressing all these things as part of our strategic plan. And then the other thing I want to mention is NPS, do you know what Amazon hovers at, NPS? Anyone like Amazon here?
40?
51.
Oh, 51.
And we're at 49.
Yep.
Okay.
And 55.
So Bain basically came up with this, Bain Consulting came up with this net promoter system. Above 50 is amazing. So we were above 50 up until recently, and yes, we are going in the wrong direction. We need to reverse that trend. Again, I think that has to do with communication, us telling our story more than anything else. But I just want to put out there that even though it's a small group, it's still statistically significant, that sample size of what survey results that we're getting. And we have an opportunity to do a better job of telling our story, that we hear you, we agree, and we're working on it. So to me, this is a good story.
Yeah, the scores are very good.
Yeah.
So even the ones that are lower than others are still in the satisfied or very satisfied range. The net promoter overall score went down a couple points, but it's still in the great range here. For what it's worth, 346 respondents, that's 346 people who are doing business here who are giving us feedback. So that's helpful information that we take seriously, and I agree that we need to align this with what we're talking about in strategic planning and communicate that out to the public.
And then years ago, I don't know when last, but we were talking about net promoter score at the transaction level. Are we doing that in planning or anything, Mr. Allen? I know we talked about that. How do we capture, fire, police, wherever the touch points are with customer service?
So we started doing that with the business license process. So we have data on that. And then, Michael, I don't know if there's where you are with the permitting process. Sorry.
Yeah, just in the last several months, we went live with the new permitting software. So we'll be working to connect that touch point when somebody finishes a project, then they'll actually get 2 opportunities. One, to participate in this survey, but we also have a CDD-specific customer service satisfaction survey that we've been issuing starting last October on an annual basis. And once we set it up, we'll do it on a rolling basis because this score tells us one piece of the equation, but it's important for me to drill down what piece of the permitting process, where there's communication gaps. And so we'll be incorporating that into our new permit system.
Thank you. And then I'm thinking of Fix It. I don't know, I know Mayor Pro Tem was promoting that so well for a while, that system that we have within Granicus, I guess, right? Is that another opportunity where a whole bunch of different issues that come through that fix-it functionality, and do the people have to give their email with that? I can't remember.
You can either log in or you could do it as a guest or report it.
If you log in, though, that could be an interesting opportunity to say, how was your experience? You know, I reported that there was a bunch of dumping in my alley, and then you get a follow-up the next day. How was that? Great,
Yeah.
or whatever.
And I
Yeah.
think we have to do a better job of communicating back out, our resolution of those fixing on a more quarterly basis to say we had X amount of requests and we resolved X amount within an X period of time.
Yeah, we'll take a look at those results. I think that was an action item from today, how the report and issue is being tracked and monitored and what our results are. I don't have that information tonight, but I agree that that's something we should be looking at. And if we can automate so that some sort of email goes out when a ticket, so to speak, has been completed, I think that would be good data to get as well.
And one of the things that I talked with Michael Allen about today was, you know, now that we're implementing the new planning system, we really need to do a community outreach to let people know, because there's some people who had bad experience previously when we didn't have a new system. We need to change that perception and let people know that, you know, what we're doing and how it's improved so that we can try to change that perception.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. Because that new system gives you visibility too to where your project is in the timeline,
Yeah, it tells
right?
you exactly
Yeah.
where you're at in the process. You can schedule inspections, you can communicate with the reviewers. It's fantastic. And it'll definitely streamline our process, far more transparent than the old system. Yeah.
That's great. Thank you. Any other questions for Mrs. Voss? Thank you, because I know we used to outsource this and spend some money to do this, and your department's doing it. So thank you.
All right, you're welcome. Thank you.
All right, we're on to item 19, expansion of the lateral police officer recruitment incentive program. Chief Bermudez to report. Chief.
Hi, good evening, Mayor, council members. This evening, the police department is seeking approval for a police lateral incentive program. Currently, the police department is authorized to hire 62 police officers, and we're currently at 56 officers. Over the next year and a half, we're looking to potentially lose 10 officers to retirements. And in order to fill our ranks, I'm asking for approval from the council for a incentive program that involves $40,000 for laterals, and that'll be dispersed over a 4-year period. So the lateral will be hired. He or she gets $10,000 at hire time, $10,000 at the end of probation, an additional $8,000 at the end of the next year, and then 6 and 6 following that every year, 6 and 6. A couple things about why we made it only for laterals. So when we hire police officers, when they're entry level, normally there's about a 3 to 4 month period for backgrounds. We hire the individual, we send them to the academy. The academy is generally 5.5 to 6 months. After the academy, they graduate, they come out, and they're on what we call field training. Field training is 6 to 7 months. They do 6 months out in the field with a field training officer, and then they do a month of what we call a ghost ride. After that time, if the FTO program feels that he or she is ready to go out on their own, they become a solo police officer. So it takes a long time from the 3 to 4 month background process, the academy of 5 to 6 months, and then potentially a 7th month training program. That's very expensive, both in staff time and city funds. Laterals, the way this is structured is they currently have to be off probation and already have a post-basic certificate with a California law enforcement agency. They come over to our agency. Post does not mandate any specific period of training, so they can come over. If the person is very good police officer, potentially they could do a 2 to 3 month training program. All they would need to know is the city, city orientation and how we do our reports, how we handle our business, and then they could be out as a solo police officer as quickly as 3 months. The other thing that we structured with this program is the lateral officer gets 40,000, how I described, and then the person who brings them over gets $10,000 as a recruiter. And unlike other programs that we've done in the past where the police department employee that brings someone over gets the money, we've opened it up to, or we propose that it be opened up to any city employee. They get $10,000. So whether they work at City Hall, whether they work in Public Works, if someone has a brother, sister, family member, friend, neighbor that is currently a peace officer in the state of California, they talk about El Segundo, the good things that we have to offer, they can bring them over. That employee also benefits from this program by getting $10,000. And the way they get it is $5,000 at the time of hire, and then another $5,000 at the time when the police officer gets off probation. So that would be $50,000. $50,000 altogether. I'm asking for this to go up to $500,000. I'm hoping to get 10 laterals out of this program. If I'm fortunate enough to get the 10 laterals, I will come back to council and ask for additional funds. So that means that it was a very successful program. If you'll remember, in 2008, we had a very similar program where we hired a marketing agency to come in and develop the program for us. At the time, it was $25,000. And at the time in 2018, that was fantastic. It was, we were the talk of the South Bay when we put $25,000 together. And we ended up picking up 7 laterals, which was unheard of. I'd never seen that, but it was very successful for us. At the time, unfortunately, we gave the lateral $25,000 immediately upon hire, so there was nothing to keep him here. We did lose a couple of them, 3 of them, but this time around, we're structuring it so the lateral gets it over a 4-year period. Any questions for me regarding the program?
If you could just talk about the funding source.
Yeah, so we currently have several vacancies on the department that can cover the cost of the price tag of the program. And so I've spoken to finance staff, and we do have enough vacancy money in the department to cover it.
And would you estimate the cost is, or compare the cost to what it would cost us to hire and train an entry-level officer and have all that time invested in the academy and that?
Yeah, so we did the math. The rough estimate would be probably higher than $50,000 to bring someone in, to pay for a background, staff time to do everything that's involved in the background, and then in addition to that, the salary that the trainee would get in the academy would be somewhere around $40,000. And then in addition to that, they come out of the academy. They're still not a solo officer, so we can't use them. They're out training. We're still paying a salary for that person. Uniforms, although we pay for uniforms for a lateral, but they would still be receiving a salary. And then we have to hope that, number one, they make it off of training, and number two, that they don't quit, which has happened.
Okay, and then in the staff report, it notes that Beverly Hills is offering 20, Hermosa Beach is at 40, and Inglewood is at 40, and these are for the same type of lateral transfers?
Yeah, so these were confirmed during the process of completing the staff report. Beverly Hills has a $20,000 bonus. I think they're all structured in a very similar way what we did. Hermosa Beach and Inglewood both have $40,000. As far as I know, they don't reward the recruiter for bringing someone in. I don't think so.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Thanks, Chief. Obviously, we're in a really difficult time right now. I mean, if you look at, God, the Daily Breeze had an article on this the other day. I think it was on Sunday, the Ocean County Register, or whatever news organization you turn on. It's very difficult to find police officers no matter where you go in this country.
Yes.
I think in some ways, it's even a little bit more difficult for us, and the reason why I say that is only because we're a small town. It requires a certain amount of the type of policing that not everybody wants to do. And definitely in support of what you're looking for here. Additionally, when you look at what we just went through from strategic planning, the information we got off of Net Promoter, the concerns of the community that we see on social media every day, this is a major deal. So in addition to this, one of the things I'm concerned about is the staffing levels. And the reason why is that you mentioned the 10 possible retirements. And nowadays, I also, and correct me if I'm wrong, people are pulling the pin a little bit earlier nowadays just because it's just not the type of job that you want to stick around for anymore. I hope we're different than that, but that's the truth of the matter. So in addition to this, if you had like a wish list to do like, hey, if we wanted to temporarily authorize up to a staffing increase to account for the 18 months it takes for a new hire, as well as up to 10 people that might potentially retire, what would it be in your opinion, like a wish list of what would that number look like in order to take into account all the things that we're facing?
Yeah, a couple things. Number one, you're absolutely right about officers leaving when they can. So traditionally, it's been my experience that officers reach that retirement age and they'll stay a year, 2 years, 3 years. I'm not seeing that today. People turn 50 plus and they're gone. And unfortunately, our friendship with, you know, I'll try to convince them to stay. They're like, Chief, I'm tired. I'm getting out of this business. Many of them are leaving out of state. When they retire, some are leaving out of state even before retirement age. And that's not unique to El Segundo PD. That's happening throughout certainly the South Bay, but LA County and the whole state. So that brings up several challenges. I've done some research about where I want to be as far as growth of the department. And obviously, you know, there's challenges that we have in our retail locations on the east side of the city. The city is divided into 3 geographic areas. It's been like that for many, many, many years, as long as I've been here. And the east side of the city has continued to grow. And if I had my wish list, I feel my recommendation would be that the department should grow by 10 officers, and including 1 sergeant. So it'd be 9 police officers, 1 sergeant. And I can give you a little feedback on how I think that's necessary.
Chief, it's worth probably visiting that. That's a patrol, 1 motor, and 1 sergeant, right?
Yes. So there are currently 7 patrol shifts in patrol. I want to add 1 additional officer to every patrol shift. I want to do an overlap shift on the weekends, which is when we get very busy. And out of that, we need, I would like to add 1 motor officer. There's been a tremendous increase in traffic in the city, and also 1 detective. The detective would primarily cover hotel crimes. We have, I believe, 14, 15 hotels in the city. The crimes that are happening at hotels are very taxing for our officers and for the resources that we have. It includes domestic violence. It includes identity theft, a lot of theft in the parking lots. And so those things take a lot of resources. I would like to add 1 detective. So when I say 10 total peace officers, that would include 7 patrol officers, 1 motor, 1 detective, and then 1 sergeant to oversee the weekend team. And that, to me, is a solid plan as we move forward with all the growth that we're having on the east side of the city. It would bring our department to 72 sworn officers, and I believe that's the right number for us to have.
So out of that, say that extra 10 that we're looking at right now, obviously it could be probably a combination, right? It's difficult to get 10 people to lateral lower, especially right now when there's a lot of competition.
Yes.
Even if we were to say, let's temporarily do this to get, you know, to address what the issues are right now, this could conceivably take a couple of years in order to get you staffed to that level. Is that accurate?
Absolutely, no doubt. This will take years to get up to that level, but there are some things that I think will help. One is obviously the buzz of the $40,000 will help, and it shows growth in the department. And I think that attracts a lot of laterals, right? They want to come to some of them want to come to a bigger department, more opportunities. And so I think that's good. We have another motor, we have another detective, another sergeant position. Those are good things to attract people to the department. And so even in the best of a scenario, it would take me a long time to get to that number. It'll be a challenge, yeah.
I have one question. So I know we had talked before about some of the hotels and the services we provide. And is there a way for us to charge hotels that have excessive calls and then, or mandate that they increase the security at the hotel to try to mitigate some of these crimes?
Well,
some of the city.
Unless they, the short answer is no, unless there's some sort of restitution as part of, which isn't really the hotels, then it's whoever the perpetrators are of the crimes, but we don't have the ability to charge businesses for excessive calls. Now, potentially, if for certain businesses and whatnot, but it has to be extremely excessive. We can potentially threaten to shut them down for becoming a nuisance. We had a situation during the pandemic where one of the motels was getting close to that point. We were looking at that, and there were a lot of communications. I applaud the police department. They went over and had a lot of communications with that motel and really brought it under control. But no, we can't charge for a service or for a call, if you will. Now, you know, if there's some sort of excessive loud party and there's, again, some sort of warning that's going on at a hotel, the next time around, the hotel or the people that are causing disturbance can be charged. But that's a pretty limited circumstance.
But we can't require them to have, if we see an excessive call rate, we can't require them to have enhanced security?
Well, generally what would happen, I think kind of what happened in the circumstance I'm thinking about, is it's getting to a point where, you know, they could be sued. I've done this with, not in El Segundo, but with some hotels in other jurisdictions where you sue them for becoming a nuisance, and the threat is you're going to shut them down, and during that process you hope they will do things to mitigate the problem and higher security and those kind of things, and sometimes they don't, and you end up shutting them down. That's not an easy task to pull off, but it does happen. Again, you know, when we had a really difficult problem during the pandemic, the police department got that under control relatively quickly, but I understand still, I don't know that it's any particular hotel or motel now. I think it's more generalized, but I let the chief speak to that.
We didn't get to a yes.
It's a maybe, but the problem with a maybe is that the problem has become so bad that, it could turn into a yes, but that means you have a horrible situation.
So I do want to address that really quick. We have area lieutenants. So we have an area lieutenant on the west side. We have an area lieutenant, everything east of PCH. They're very, very good at handling problems before they get out of control. And every week we have staff meetings, and I look at the logs, I look at what's creating an issue, and I'll say, hey, what are we doing about this hotel? What are we doing about this store? And so they'll go out, they'll talk to the managers, they'll talk with the supervisors, and they'll come up with a plan. It's been a challenging environment. I'm sure everyone has seen the thefts that are happening on TV, on the news, and unfortunately, we're not immune from that. We have the Nike store, we have Dick's Sporting Goods, we have Nordstrom's Rack. all of these stores, they're suffering from the same thing that we see on the news. People go in, they commit thefts, and just the penalties just aren't what it used to be.
Chief, do we know what the current salary savings are right now on our unfilled positions? Do we have a rough sense of the total? If we're at authorized 62, what do you have, 58 right now?
We're at 56.
56, so so we're talking about 600 some thousand, $700,000 in salary savings.
Yeah, you know, I did talk to a former finance director. I didn't go over the specific numbers, but he did say, hey, we have a significant
Yeah, I'm
salary
obviously
savings.
annualizing that number. I bring that up because the last time our financing mechanism on the $25,000 bonus was we allocated the salary savings on the per year and used that as our pool to draw from. And while I'm comfortable using that sort of system on this, my concern, and in transparency, this came up in our subcommittee meeting, is that we end up in a sort of toxic bidding cycle with our neighbors, as we all end up with started at 25 will become 40. And remember, ours isn't just 40, because per the MOU, that 40 could be 70, plus the 10 for recruiting could be 80. So we are suddenly spending a ton of money on bonuses over and above salary, and the officers we bring over on laterals are not going to be, brand new officers. So they're going to be expensive officers on our salary scale. So my thinking is, while I'm not necessarily opposed to the $40,000 bonus, I would not make it a per head. I would draw it against that pool and use the salary savings as our funding source, as we did in the same manner last time. And then if we get to a point where we've exhausted it, say, look, my pool is out and I still want former officers, then we can look at budgeting for that, would be my recommendation.
I like that, because if we're also talking about adding 10 officers, we're talking about $2.5–3 million minimum for that.
Mr. Mayor, then a quick question on that. Do we have to agendize that separately?
Yeah, we can't vote on that
We
tonight.
can't vote on pumping to 72 on tonight, can we?
No.
Okay.
We're actually coming back, second meeting in June, with a full comprehensive overview of the police department, kind of the state of the police department.
Yeah, my only
They do a lot
thinking
of
is
that.
people are graduating from things in May, and it's summer mover season. It's the biggest cycle of EASs from the military. So if we're waiting until June 20th to authorize it, if he wants to recruit now is the time to start talking to people.
Yeah, we could vote on we're voting on this $40,000 plus the 10. We just can't vote on the additional officers, right? Is that, Chris?
We
Yeah.
can't vote on a temporary authorization.
Not this evening, you can bring it back at the next meeting.
But he
But I
can
would-
recruit as
He
much
can-
as he wants.
He
He
can
just can't
keep
hire
recruiting
anybody.
though, right?
Oh, yes.
He can recruit 100 people, he just can't hire them yet.
Right, and the council gave that authority during the budget discussion.
Yeah, we gave him allowance for 66, I think, but yeah, don't feel like you have to pump the brakes on our behalf, Chief.
Well, I can't afford to do that. I can tell you we're at 56. Out of those 56, all of them are not solo officers, right? So out of those 56, I have 2 in the academy, I have 2 on training. All of a sudden, we're down to low 50s. If I lose 5 more officers this year, we're down to the 40s, and 40,000 may not be enough. So it's drastic. We really do need it.
Yeah, and I would say further to that, and again, not for a non-agendized item, but if when we go forward with even with this plan, if you need some of this money, and I know we're not paying an advertising agency, but if you want to find some guy who you think is the greatest recruiter on the planet, and you want to send this guy to all points south of those bases, and have that guy go recruit like he's trying to fill 7th Marines, I think we'd probably pay for that too.
We're looking into that. I actually talked to our personnel sergeant, the supervisor, and I said, hey, is there someone out there that does this as a business? Let's bring them on board, because we're going to need help.
All right, I'll try and help.
Thank you.
Any further questions?
I think this is a good start.
Yes, thank you. And then, Madam Clerk, do I need to report on something regarding the side letter? Okay. Well, I don't.
And there were copies of that put out on the desk, and they've been circulated to the council. there was some back and forth between the Police Officers Association and Police Department and my office, and some, if Chief, you just wanted to briefly, there were just some pretty non-substantive changes.
It was just a little restructuring, nothing with the schedule of passing out the funds or anything like that. It was just, can we put this here instead of here? And nothing changed. So there are some changes from the original version that you have in your packet, but nothing like amounts or anything like that.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
The timing of the payments and the amounts did not change.
Okay. So, Mayor Pro Tem.
Well, I would say I would move approval, but my motion would be that the funding comes from the normal 62 officer budgeted total, and then if those bonuses are going to exceed that we come back for approval.
I'll second that. So the motion is to proceed with the $50,000, 50 in total, 10 for the, if it's an employee that refers. So 40 for the officer, 10 for the employee, with the caveat that we use the, what do you call it again? Salary savings. And if it exceeds that, you just come back to council. So that's first and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
5-0. Thank you,
you.
Chief. And then,
Appreciate that.
City Attorney, would you read the resolution, please?
Yes, Mayor and Council, a resolution adopting a side letter agreement between members of the El Segundo Police Officers Association and the City of El Segundo to expand the eligibility for lateral police officer recruitment incentive program is ready for adoption.
I'll move approval.
So moved.
Okay.
Oh, you will, sorry.
Yeah, second?
Yeah, second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
5-0. Boyles Drew. Thank you. All right, next up, item 20, side letter agreement between the City of El Segundo and the El Segundo Police Service Support Employees Association. Rebecca Reddick, Director of HR, is coming up to report.
I'm a little shorter than the chief. Mayor and council, this item tonight is for the Police Support Services Employees Association. We are currently at the bargaining unit table with them, but in preparation for the negotiations that we're in right now, we did a review of the now expired MOU. And in there was a prior negotiated 1% employee pickup of the CalPERS pension costs for retirement. It was discovered that the 1% deduction was not taken from the employees and the CalPERS contract was not amended. So in order to effectuate that change, we have entered into a side letter agreement with the association. This impacts 3 members, which are considered classic members under CalPERS. So approval of this side letter will enable us to begin taking the deductions and to send the documentation to CalPERS to begin the contract amendment process.
Great. Any questions for Mrs. Reddick? All right, do we have a motion to approve?
For 6, so moved.
Great. Do we have a second?
Pimentel, second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
5-0. Okay, then we have a resolution to read.
Mayor and Council, a resolution adopting a side letter agreement between members of the Police Support Services Employees Association and the City of El Segundo to share the cost of the employer contribution pursuant to Government Code Section 20516 is ready for adoption.
Thank you, sir. Do we have a motion to approve?
Baldino moves.
Thank you.
Second.
Second for Giroux. All those in favor?
Aye.
5-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're on to City Clerk reports this evening.
No, thank you.
No, thanks. Okay, City Treasurer's not here. Councilmember Baldino.
Nothing tonight.
Thank you. Councilmember Giroux.
Quick congratulations to the El Segundo boys volleyball team, who won CIF Southern Section, and I think they're on to regionals this week. Yeah, I know, big surprise. Yeah, the boys finally stepped up. It's been the girls in this room every year. So congratulations to them, and I'm not sure when
Played tonight.
they played tonight.
They played tonight here in El Segundo.
So
if they win, they'll continue to play here in El Segundo.
all right, so they're going on to it. So congratulations there.
They
That's all I got. Thanks.
Good call. Thank you. Councilmember Perstuck.
Yeah, just let everyone know that the Egg Gala is this Friday. Tickets are still available if you're interested. And the prom is this Saturday, so please be on the lookout for student drivers in the midnight hour. police, please be aware, help our students get home safe, and make good decisions. But thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Perstuck. Mayor Pro Tem, you have an item under your name.
Following the prom, I don't know how to, lost in thought. Just give me a moment. All right. A few things to report before I get to my usual menagerie of fantastic trivia from the COG. Item 21, I want to discuss a formation of an ad hoc city council subcommittee to receive updates from the El Segundo Economic Development Corporation. A few things on this. The concept of this, as you know, reports are the time where we get to share information about what we do in our various subcommittees, because the Brown Act, we can't sit in a smoky room somewhere and discuss what's going on in different places. It became clear in the last meeting that we have a gap in communication with economic development as a standalone 501c3. So the concept on this is by having an ad hoc subcommittee, it does not require agendas like that, but they have someone besides just the city manager who gets 8,000 emails a day that they can communicate to and say, here's what they're working on. And then when we have this moment of city council reports, that subcommittee can just give us here's what economic development is looking at. They're commissioning a report for the following, or they're working on the Greenway, or they're having conversation with Metro about something X. So that was my concept for this. I'm certainly open for other ideas. I was just looking for a way to string or piece together or fill the gap between what they're working on and what we think they're working on. So that's my concept.
I agree with that. I think we've become a little detached. So I will step forward and be on the subcommittee if you guys would like me to be.
Any other volunteers?
I am interested to see what their plan is regarding housing east of PCH. I've already had a conversation with Al. So yeah, if you want me to volunteer, I'm happy to, because I'm very curious what that land use element's going to look like.
Very well. So, and as an ad hoc subcommittee, it's not, correct me if I'm wrong, City Attorney, they're not subject to any regular cadence of meetings. It can be ad hoc.
It's a combination of how often and how long. If this is something they're going to meet like twice a year, and then that is fine. If they're going to be meeting multiple times, let's say like monthly, then that becomes a regular.
No, I'm saying that's what I say. There's no regular the nature of ad hoc. There's
Maybe
no
like
cadence.
just like a couple times a year, you get together, update with the group.
Yeah,
Okay.
my concept on this, that it is event driven. So as they are working on something, they can report out to the subcommittee.
They might only meet once a year. Got it. Okay.
Very well. Well, with that in mind, I will move approval of my own item, nominating Councilmember Baldino and Councilmember Pierstook to be the ad hoc subcommittee members.
I'll second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
5-0.
All right.
Next.
Even more exciting, Transportation Subcommittee did not have a tremendous amount to discuss this time. Largely because we did not have Metro data, but the big point of discussion will be three options on Green Line extension. Will it be extended at all? So the no bid option, which without speaking on Lawndale's behalf, appears to be Lawndale's position. North Redondo would prefer to see the train go down Hawthorne Boulevard, and Torrance would prefer to see it go through Redondo. So there's three conflicting cities within the COG. The COG is probably unlikely to take a position based upon that, but we did not have the data or a recommendation of a Metro on that. Either way, it's probably going to be not less than $2.5 billion of your money if they decide to build it. So get it while you can. The sales tax calculation I reported on last time from League of Cities that would estimate we would get more than 10% of an increase if sales tax on point of use for mobile delivery was configured. There's a new calculation out on that, a sort of an alternate calculation method. I haven't had a chance to look at it. It just beat the meeting by a little bit. We already covered AB 1216, which mercifully was not put in the suspense file, but advanced through appropriation, although there were still 3 people who voted against it, which is odd. Three against and 1 abstention, which I thought was strange. Sanitation had no quorum, so we're redoing our meeting tomorrow. Everybody likes multiple meetings on sanitation and solid waste. The more you can talk about it, the better. Safety subcommittee, the chief got to that with the extra officer piece. And then there was something about disaster council, Mr. Mayor, and I don't remember what it was. Yeah, it'll come to me. Nothing pressing. We're going to have a disaster council. We approached Chevron about hosting us for a disaster walkthrough of their command center, as we did a couple of years ago, as well as seeing their activity on the boats. But that is pending with them. And that is all.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Well, I think the city manager and I are both going to be at Contract Cities event this weekend, starting Thursday. And I believe I'm going to be a director at large next year on Contract Cities, and so I'm looking forward to that. And then I just want to congratulate Mayor Pro Tem Pimentel for making the first cut. I was on the nominating committee for the COG, and he is nominated to be the second chair of the COG, which means he'd be chair of COG and after Cedric and Rodney, so 2-3 years. He still has to get the nod. He has to get the vote from the board of directors, but anyway, that's he interviewed for it.
Do I get to wear a special sash at graduation?
You get the hat with the what do they call those fez things?
You're right behind Prince Harry.
Yeah. So, in all seriousness, it's a really important role, having served in it myself, and puts us in good stead with the region. And Sandy Jacobs, the late mayor, was also the chair of COG. That was, I think, the last time we had, before me, a chair on the COG. So it's good. And I want to mention Carol, thanks for the reminder. The Civics Day was yesterday. Great job, staff, Craig Gast, and the entire school district, the board. That was really fun. That was the second round of the students coming back with their real-life presentations about how to attract a workforce here in El Segundo, and the kids did an amazing job. I think it's the third time since we've been on council, and they keep getting better and better. And that lasagna, I don't know if you guys had that lasagna that Mr. Gast made, that was very good. My wife wasn't too happy when I told her it might have been the best lasagna. It was really good. All right, and let's see, we're on to City Attorney.
Nothing this evening, Mayor. Thank you.
City Manager.
Nothing for me also, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, that concludes our meeting. Thank you very much. Good night.
Boys team won, by the way. They just won, yeah. Still going.